So this is going to be a live demo of the GuardMode functionality using DPX version 4.8.1. Let me first give you a rundown of my environment. I have here a Windows 2016 server on which I've installed the DPX GuardMode agent, also known as the ransomware agent. So I've registered it to my DPX master server at install time. Currently, the GuardMode agent only supports Windows operating systems, and Phase 2 will introduce support for Linux operating systems in the future. So we'll be supporting those platforms on which we have our block level functionality supported for the agent today. So the first thing that we'll do is log into the DPX 4.8.1 web UI. When you log in for the first time, it's going to show you what's new between the releases, with the ransomware detection agent being at the top of the list here, and you can read some of the other major changes here as well. But DPX 4.7 introduced an events tab, which allows you to see and filter events that are occurring within DPX, such as user logins. And this is where you're going to see activities from the ransomware agent, like the block list being updated, files being blocked, suspicious patterns detected, honeypot violations, etc. So if we jump over here on the nodes menu on the left-hand side, when you install the ransomware agent, it's going to automatically register itself with the DPX master server, and you're going to see that node listed as a type data security. And we can drill down into the settings by just clicking on the hyperlink for the server here. And you can see a security tab for configuring the settings of the ransomware agent. Here you're going to find some settings for, say, updating the block list on the agent, adding exclusions for files and folders, configuring threshold settings, and configuring honeypot locations. Let's first start with the block list functionality, and these are the file extensions that you want the ransomware agent to notify you of when they land on your file system. So you'll notice here that we have a list of block list extensions. In this case, we have about 5,057 patterns that can be downloaded from our Catalogic file server and pushed to the ransomware agent. And you can update this list directly from the UI and add exclude extensions to the list here as well. If we want to see the list of blocked file extensions, we can jump directly to the configuration file under the installation folder. So here you're going to see a file called blocklist.json, which contains a list of all the different file extensions currently being filtered under the block list. So we can send a notification to the event viewer by violating the block list with one of these file extensions. So say here we'll create a file with the .777 extension anywhere on the server and check back with our event monitor. So I'll just create that file here. And now if we check back with the event monitor, we'll see the critical event being detected with our file being created with that .777 extension. So the ransomware agent is monitoring the file system activity, and it's recording the metadata of the file being created and reporting this back to the DPX event monitor. So this is the block list. We can also notify using violations from honeypot locations, and these are files and folders that are populated with some plant files that are just awaiting modification to then inform the administrator that tampering may have occurred due to rights to that location. And you can configure the honeypot location from the security tab of the server. So we'll jump back there. And here you can see that I have some locations specified as honeypots. One called AA, it's a trap, the other called ZZ Top, and one here called test. The prefixes here are intentional, not just because AA stands for Admiral Akbar from Star Wars, of course being the originator of the quote, but also because if you're under a programmatic attack, the ransomware would likely begin alphabetically starting at the top of the directory structure and make its way down recursively through the folder listing. Or it may do so in reverse alphabetical order, which is why I have the folders prefixed with both AA and ZZ, but just an interesting tidbit to keep in mind when you're planning your honeypot locations. So let's jump back to my Windows server here. And here I can see the list of files that were planted. So if I modify one of these files here, say a Word document, and I save this, I should see this exception pop up in my DPX event console. So let me jump back to the DPX event console here. And you can see that it had already picked up that event with the exception indicating that a file within the honeypot location has been modified. So we'll talk about the threshold settings next. And for suspicious behavior that occurs outside of a block list or a honeypot, we have a pattern matching and threshold detection capabilities. And these settings are also under the security settings for the node. So let's jump back there. There's a section here under the security tab called threshold settings. There's a good write-up on the DPX user guide on page 443 for adjusting these threshold values and what each of them means. But basically, the analyzer works via an algorithm that checks activity on a periodic interval and creates a value weighting based on the number of modifications that are occurring over a number of iterations. So in my case, I have it set to 12 iterations every 7 seconds with a risk level of 100. So when the value of that weighting surpasses the threshold risk level, in this case 100, the activity is going to be flagged and the message is going to be sent to the DPX event monitor. So what I have here is a script that's going to simulate a bunch of writes to the file system so I can trigger an alert. In this case, I want the alert to occur as quickly as possible, so I'll check across 3 iterations every 7 seconds with a weighted value of 25. So if it surpasses that 25 score, which it should do so rather quickly, I'm going to get my notification. So let me go back to my client here. And I'll go ahead and run this simple threshold trigger script. And what this is going to do is just going to create a number of files on my file system. I can check that list here. So I'm going to let this run for a few seconds and check my event monitor once the activity has been triggered by my ransomware agent. So let's check out the event monitor and we'll see the alerts from our ransomware agent. And here we can see that the file modification threshold has been exceeded. Finally, we'll look at the notification settings where you're going to be able to filter events and send notifications to your email address. So it's going to be located here under the notification settings tab. And here you can add your SMTP server and email address that you want to set as a target just by clicking on add target here and specifying your SMTP server and target email address. But after configuring your email target, you can go down to the notification rules section and set up a rule definition for the types of errors that you want to be emailed to yourself. And if you click on add rule here, you can select the severity and the type of event that you want to have emailed. So if you wanted to see all ransomware messages that were critical and warning, we'll just click on critical and warning severity checkboxes and then check the ransomware detection checkbox underneath the event type. I'll give my rule a name. Just call it critical and warning ransomware events here. And at the bottom here, you can specify the target for this rule. So if you had more than one target configured, you can select a different target based off the notification. So for example, if you want to send ransomware events to your security team and then send backup job events to your backup administration team, you can very easily do this when you configure your rule here. Under the advanced options, I can coalesce multiple events in a single email within a notification interval if I preferred here as well. So if I didn't want to receive messages but coalesce them every 5 minutes, I'll just set my notification interval here to 5. So once configured, these notifications can then come straight to your inbox so that you can be notified of these file system violations as they occur in real time. And if I jump to my email inbox here, I can see the emails that have been sent whenever my ransomware agent triggered a violation for my block list, my honeypot, or my threshold violation. And you can see that some of these emails have been also coalesced every 5 minutes as well.